Hey there, welcome to the video. I'm Dying Legacy, and this is the Magicka Burst build, a solo Magicka Sorcerer build that requires no trial, mythic or arena gear. This is a base version of my Magicka Surge build, so if you're looking for that powerhouse build, I'll link it in the description below for you to find and to watch after. This is a quick build guide. We'll be going over the race, attributes, mundus, food and potions, followed by the gear, skills, passives and champion point slottables. The info will be minimal, so I'll only be going over what's necessary. However, do feel free to comment and let me know if you want a more full detailed guide, or if there's anything I could do better. With that out of the way, let's get into the Magicka Burst build. Beginning with the race, you can choose whatever you want to use, as the advantages are minor and it's an RPG, so play as you want. But if I was to suggest any races, it'd be the High Elf for more damage, or a Khajiit for more critical damage, or a Breton if you're looking for a little extra sustain. For the attributes, we are putting 64 points into Magicka, and for our Mundus Stone, we're taking the Lover's Mundus Stone for soloing, because it's going to give us a little extra physical and spell penetration. If you plan on doing group content, you can take the Thief Mundus Stone for that extra bit of critical rating. For our food, we are using the Clockwork Citrus Fillet to increase our max health, health recovery, max magicka and magicka recovery. This is a gold quality food, so it's rather expensive if you're buying it from a guild merchant or grabbing the materials to make yourself. However, to make things easier, you could grab the Witchmother's Potent Brew, which is going to come with a slight decrease in the stats and no health recovery. However, it is much more affordable and easier to get. And it doesn't matter which one you use, as the differences are minor. So use whatever you can get. The potions we are using are the Essence of Spell Power potions, which will grant us Major Sorcery, Major Prophecy and Major Intellect, as well as Restore Magicka. You can buy these from a guild merchant or make them yourselves. And if you happen not to have any on you at the time, you can always use the Essence of Magicka potions, which drop from mobs around Tamriel. This will give you Major Intellect and will also restore a bit of Magicka. Potions are important for those harder to kill bosses to help maintain some sustain and to increase our damage, so there's no reason not to use them. With all that out of the way, we're going to move on to the gear. We are wearing 7 pieces of light armor on this build. All our body pieces are in light with a maximum magicka enchant and a divine's trait. For our weapons, we are using an Inferno Staff on our front bar with an absorb magicka enchant and a precise trait. And for our back bar, we're using an Inferno Staff with weapon damage enchant and the infused trait. For our jewellery, we are using spell damage enchants and the bloodthirsty trait. First up, starting with the monster sets, and we have a couple of options here, starting with Ice Heart set, which can be gotten from Dire Frost Keep, the helm from the veteran difficulty, or you can grab a shoulder from the Undaunted vendors from any of the main cities. Ice Heart is going to give us some extra critical chance, and anytime we do critical damage, it has a small chance to give us a damage shield. Also, while you have the damage shield up, you're going to deal frost damage to enemies within 5 meters of you every 1 second. Our next choice of monster sets are the Elambris set, which can be got from the Crypt of Hearts 1. Again, the helm from veteran and a shoulder from the Undaunted vendors. Elambris is going to add maximum magicka, and when we deal flame or shock damage, we have a chance to summon a meteor shower that deals flame damage and shock damage to all enemies within 4 meters every 1 second for 5 seconds. And our last choice of monster sets is the Maw of the Infernal set. You can get this from Banished Cells 2. The helm from veteran difficulty and the shoulder from the Undaunted vendors. The Maw of the Infernal is going to add maximum magicka, and when we deal damage on a light or heavy attack, we have a chance to summon a fire-breathing Daedorot for 15 seconds. The Daedoran's attacks are flame damage, and it deals it every 2 seconds. And next, jumping onto a choice of 5-piece sets. It doesn't matter where you wear these on the build, as long as you are using the exact same weapons from the same set to maintain those bonuses at all times. The first set in question is Kalurian's Legacy. You can get this from Fang Lair on normal or veteran. Kalurian's Legacy is going to add critical chance and weapon and spell damage. And when you deal critical damage with a light or heavy attack, you'll launch a projectile at your target that will deal flame, frost, shock or disease damage, and it will apply the respective status effect. This effect can occur every 10 seconds. Next up is the Overwhelming Surge set. You can get this on the Tempest Isle dungeon, on veteran or normal. And this is going to add maximum magicka, weapon damage and when you deal damage with a class ability, you surround yourself with a torrent that deals shock damage to enemies within 8 meters of you every 1 second. For 6 seconds. 15% of the damage you deal this way is going to be restored to you as Magicka, so this is a fantastic set for sustain. Next up is the Magicka Sorcerer set. You can get this from the overland content in Deshan, from world bosses, delves, public dungeons or treasure chests. The Magicka Sorcerer set's going to add maximum Magicka and a whole lot of critical chance, which can give a very good boost of damage to the build. And the last choice and suggestion for this build is the Necropotent set. You can pick this up from the Rivenspire overland content from delves, public dungeons and treasure chests and world bosses, and you can also buy it from any of the guild merchants. The Necropotent set is going to add maximum Magicka, a whole lot of it, and while we have a pet active, you're going to get extra Magicka. This goes double if you're using 2. Again, a fantastic set to add extra damage to the build. And with the gear out of the way, we're going to move straight on to the skills, and starting with the front bar. And first up, we have Hardened Ward. You can morph this from Conjured Ward, and you can find this in the Daedric Summoning skill line. Hardened Ward is going to conjure globes of Daedric energy for protection, granting a damage shield for us and our pets that's going to last for 6 seconds. Next up is Critical Surge. You can morph this from Surge, and you'll find this in the Stormcalling skill line. You'll use this to gain major brutality and sorcery, increasing our weapon and spell damage, and while it's active, any critical damage you deal is going to heal us. We're also using Crystal Fragments. You can morph this from Crystal Shard, and you can find this in the Dark Magic skill line. You're going to conjure dark crystals to bombard an enemy, dealing magic damage, and your next non-ultimate ability cast within 3 seconds costs 10% less. While slotted, casting a Health, Magicka or Stamina ability has a 33% chance of causing your next Crystal Fragments to be instant, and deals 66% more damage and cost half the Magicka. We're also using Summon Volatile Familiar. You'll morph this from Summon Unstable Familiar, and you'll find this in Daedric Summoning. You'll use this to send a Daedric Familiar to fight at your side. The Familiar's attacks will deal shock damage, and once summoned, you can activate the Familiar's special ability for Magicka to deal shock damage every 2 seconds for 10 seconds to enemy near him. The final pulse will stun all enemies hit for 3 seconds. We're also using Summon Twilight Matriarch. You'll morph this from Summon Winged Twilight. This is also found in the Daedric Summoning skill line. You'll send a Twilight Matriarch to fight at your side. The Matriarch Zap deals shock damage, and its kick deals shock damage. Once summoned, you can activate the Twilight special ability for Magicka, causing it to heal 2 friendly targets and itself. For the ultimate on the front bar, we are using Shooting Star. You'll morph this from Meteor, and you can find this in the Mage's Guild skill line. You'll call down a comet that deals flame damage to all enemies in the area, knocking them down and stunning them for 2 seconds. After the impact, enemies in the target area will take flame damage every 1 second for 13 seconds. You'll also generate 12 ultimate for each enemy hit by the initial blast. This isn't the main ultimate on the build, this is mostly here for the Mage's Guild passives. However, if you're looking to do some quick damage or just finish off an enemy, you can pop this down and you'll get some of the ultimate back. Moving on to the back bar, we are using Unstable Wall of Fire. You'll morph this from Walls of Elements, and you'll find this in the Destruction Staff skill line. You'll slam your staff down to create an unstable flaming barrier in front of you, dealing flame damage to enemies in the target area every 1 second. Burning enemies will take 20% more damage from this ability, and when the effect ends, the barrier will explode, dealing more flame damage. We're also using Scalding Ruin. You can morph this from Fire Rune, and you'll find this in the Mage's Guild skill line. You'll inscribe a rune on the ground that's going to take 2 seconds to arm, and it'll last for 18 seconds. And when triggered, the rune blasts all enemies in the target area for flame damage, and an additional amount of flame damage over 14 seconds. We're also using Boundless Storm. You'll morph this from Lightning form, and you can find this in the Stormcalling skill line. You will turn yourself into lightning, dealing shock damage every 1 second for 30 seconds, and while in this form, you also gain Major Resolve, increasing your physical resistance and spell resistance. Also activating this will grant you Major Expedition, increasing your movement speed by 30%. On the back bar, we're using Summon Volatile Familiar, and we're still using the Summon Twilight Matriarch that we're using on the front bar. This is because anytime you swap bars, if you haven't got the pet slotted, it will unsummon itself. So you need to have it on both bars to keep it summoned at all times. Onto the ultimate on the back bar, we're using the Greater Storm Atronach. You'll morph this from Summon Storm Atronach, and you can find this in the Daedric Summoning skill line. This is the main ultimate on the build, and you'll summon an immobile Storm Atronach at the target location. Its arrival will deal shock damage and stun enemies for 3 seconds, and it's going to zap the closest enemy, dealing shock damage every 1 second. If you happen to be in a group at the time, an ally near the Atronach can activate the Charged Lightning synergy, granting the ally and the Atronach Major Berserk, increasing their damage done by 10% for 8 seconds. And that covers all the skills. So with that out of the way, we're going to move straight on to the passives, and we're going to start with the class passives. First up is Dark Magic. In here, you want to grab Unholy Knowledge, Blood Magic, Persistence, and Exploitation. You want to put 2 points into everything here. Next up is Daedric Summoning. In here, you'll find Rebate, Power Stone, Daedric Protection, and Expert Summoner. You want to take everything in here and put 2 points into all of them. Onto the Stormcalling skill line. In here, you're going to find Capacitor, Energized, Amplitude, and Expert Mage. You want to grab everything in here as well. So put 2 points into all of them. We're using 2 Destruction Staffs on the build, so you want to grab everything in the Destruction Staff skill line, starting with Trifocus, Penetrating Magic, Elemental Force, Ancient Knowledge, and Destruction Expert. Put 2 points into everything. Onto the armor passives, we're only using light armor, so you want to grab everything in the light armor skill line, starting with Grace, Evocation, Spell Warding, Prodigy, and Concentration. Next up are the guild passives, starting with the Mage's Guild. We're using 2 Mage's Guild abilities on this build, so you want to grab everything that's in here, starting with Mage's Adept, Everlasting Magic, Magicka Controller, and Might of the Guild. You don't have to grab Persuasive Will unless you plan on doing story content, as this is going to help you persuade NPCs to kind of skip some form of conversation and dialogue, just so you can move through your quests faster. Next up is the Undaunted skill line. In here, you will find Undaunted Command and Undaunted Metal. You want to put 2 points into everything, especially into Undaunted Metal, as this is going to increase all of our attributes depending on the amount of armor types we're wearing. We're only using light armor, so we're going to get a bonus of 2%, but it's necessary for a big boost in our overall strength and sustain. Next up is an Ease of Life skill. You'll find it in the Assault skill line, and it's Continuous Attack. You only need to put 1 point into this passive, so we can gain Major Gallop at all times to increase our mount speed by 30%. However, if you do plan on doing something like Cyrodiil, you can put 2 points into this, as it's going to increase your weapon and spell damage by 10% and your Magicka and stamina recovery by 20% for 10 minutes after you capture a lumber mill, farm, mine, or keep. That will go up depending on the amount of points you put into the passive. However, to gain Major Gallop, you only need 1 point, and that won't increase if you put in a second. Next is our racial passives. No matter what race you've chosen, grab everything in here, as they're going to give minor boosts and effects to our overall build. So read over them, as everyone will choose a different race, just so you can get to grips with what you're using and what you'll get out of it. And lastly is one more Ease of Life skill. This is in the Alchemy skill line and its medicinal use. When using potions, the resulting effect will last 30% longer. This means that when our potions finish and are used, our cooldown will already be completed, meaning you can always have a potion active. It's not completely necessary, but it is one of the handiest passives to grab. And that covers all the passives. So next up, we'll quickly go over the champion slotables, starting with the Warfare tree. In here, you want to grab yourself Fighting Finesse to increase critical damage and healing, Deadly Aim to increase your damage done with single target attacks, Master at Arms to increase your damage done with direct damage attacks, and you also want to grow and grab yourself Wrathful Strikes to increase our weapon and spell damage. Next, in the Fitness skill line, you will find Boundless Vitality. Take this to increase your max health, Fortify to increase our armor, and Rejuvenation to increase our sustain. And we'll also be grabbing Bastion to increase the effectiveness of our damage shields, just to increase the potency of our Hardened Ward. In the Craft skill line, now you can grab whatever you want in here, as everything is very situational and it depends on the player and what you want to use that character for. But if you plan on solely doing solo content, I would suggest grabbing Treasure Hunter to increase the quality of items you find in treasure chests, Rationeer to increase the duration of our food, and Liquid Efficiency to have a small chance not to use potions when we use them. And also grab Steed's Blessing. This will increase our out of combat movement by 20%, which is fantastic for getting around maps and such when you're soloing. And that covers the Magicka Burst build, a beginner version of the Magicka Surge build. I hope you found it useful, and if you're looking for more builds like this, do like and subscribe, it helps me phenomenally. And I do have one of these builds up once a week. If you have any thoughts or recommendations, or if you just want to let me know how the build went for you, please comment below. I love talking to every one of you, and I like getting the ideas that are bounced back to me, and it's just nice to talk to everyone. So do feel free to comment below. If you're looking for more content, you can find me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/dyinglegacy. I do play a lot of ESO over there. A lot of these builds I theorize, mess around, and kind of come up with on stream. And I also do variety content, such as making the Sims lives hell, or playing Hollow Knight. And soon I'll even be doing a quick run of Zelda's Breath of the Wild, which will mostly contain me swearing and getting angry at my incompetence at playing normal video games. At any rate, I've been Dying Legacy, this has been the Magicka Burst build. Thank you so much for watching, and please guys, as always, take care of yourself and be awesome.